In this video, I'm going to be testing the Laura Geller Balance and Brighten Powder Foundation against the Bare Minerals Original Powder Foundation. I'm going to be doing an all-day wear test. We're going to go out in natural light. We're going to compare the two. I'm going to do a 4-hour check-in and an 8-hour check-in, and then we'll come back at the end of the day and see how they've fared on my mature, over 50, actually 70-year-old skin. Hello and welcome, or welcome back. So first of all, why am I doing this test? When I did my original Laura Geller foundation wear test, I think it was in October, in early October or late September, some comments suggested that I try the Bare Minerals. So when I went to the States, I went to New York in mid-October, I tried to get the right shade of the Bare Minerals. And could I find it? Could I? Could not at all. Went to Macy's, went to Ulta, went to Sephora, went all over the show, couldn't find it. Got back to London, managed to get hold of the shade, and the shade is 09 Light Beige. So once I'd managed to get hold of that, it was just a question of finding a slot to do the comparison. Now, the only other comparison I could have done is with Jane Iredale, and that's a powder foundation I'm so scared of, because when I was in my late 40s, I went to a spa and they had some Jane Iredale products and there was a makeup artist there. And so I asked her to do a makeup for me and she used Jane Iredale products, which I'd never come across before. And oh my goodness, it looked awful. I mean, I wasn't very lined then. I was only in my mid 40s, but it showed up every crevice, every pore, every flaw. It was just horrible. So I haven't quite plucked up the courage to try Jane Iredale yet, but I will do it, because I know some of you have mentioned in the comments that you love Jane Iredale. So I won't dismiss her out of hand, because it's been a very long time since I last tried any of the products. So today we are focusing on the Laura Geller Balance and Brighten and the Bare Minerals Original Powder Foundation. Now let's talk about Bare Minerals. As I say, this is a brand new product to me and a brand new brand to me, because I've never tried any of their products. Again, I think because I heard the word mineral and I associated it with Jane Iredale, just wanted to steer clear of it. So the Bare Minerals foundation costs £38.50 and is available in 29 shades. And what's interesting about it is it contains only 5 ingredients. It says it provides from sheer to full coverage, depending on how much you apply, and it's supposed to promote clear skin over time. And it contains an SPF of 15. I don't really know why it would do that, but it does. It's vegan, cruelty-free and talc-free. Now, the Laura Geller is a very different kettle of fish in many ways, although it is a powder foundation or a powder to cream foundation. This only has 9 shades, and they are supposed to colour adjust according to your skin. And they were made, it seems to me from reading all the blurbs, specifically to help skins with redness and to cover the redness. And they have been accredited by the National Rosacea Society in the States. Now the cost can vary from £20 on her site to £21.90 currently on Amazon, up to £27 on QVC. Now QVC has a lot better information about the foundation than Laura Geller's actual site, I think. So it's the first time I've actually gone onto QVC's website, and it says that it's a colour correcting creamy powder, medium coverage, demi-matte foundation. That's what it says. Now I don't find any of those words, or very few of those words, on Laura Geller's actual site. So it is worth having a look at what QVC has to say about it. It also says, because somebody did ask whether this is made in Italy, it doesn't specifically say that the whole process happens in Italy, but on the QVC website it does actually say it's baked onto terracotta tiles and hand finished by artisans in Italy. Now on Laura Geller's site it also says that depending on the type of coverage you want, depends on where your kabuki brush is in its holder, which I'll explain in a moment. So you can get fuller, although it's medium coverage, they say, not full coverage, if you pull the sleeve, if you've got a sleeve on your kabuki brush halfway up. Anyway, I'll show you all that a bit later. Now Laura Geller does contain talc, but also contains Centella asiatica, so it does have skin-loving ingredients. I'll put on the screen whether it's vegan and cruelty-free. I can't actually remember off the top of my head, but I will put that on the screen. Now, just before I apply the foundations, just to let you know that the stars that both foundations have are interesting, because Laura Geller gets a lot lower stars all over the show, particularly on QVC at only 3.5, whereas Bare Minerals gets 4.5 on Look Fantastic. And the comments are really polar opposites. Some say that it's fantastic for their mature skin. Some say it's absolutely awful, particularly for oily skin. It shows up all their pores. So it's not easy to work out whether it's going to work for your skin or not. So if there is a returns policy, and I think in the States it's easier to return things than it is here. We don't really have a returns policy here, except I think at Space NK. So that's the problem, particularly when you're buying Laura Geller, because you can only buy it online. You cannot buy it in store. But I think QVC generally has a good returns policy, but do check on their website. So without further ado, let's crack on and apply the foundations. Now for skincare, I've got moisturiser on, I've got SPF on, and now I'm going to apply a primer all over before we apply the foundations. So let me get my hair out of the way. My fringe is getting quite long again. It grows so quickly. But I do trim it myself. Let me know in the comments if you want me to show you how I do that. I probably should do that. Maybe I should do that when I do a morning skincare again, because somebody did ask me whether I do my own fringe. I said yes. Right, for primer, I'm going to apply the e.l.f. Liquid Poreless Putty Primer, which I really do like. It's very affordable. It's a nice kind of slightly gel-like texture. Felt funny doing my eye makeup this morning without doing any foundation, but actually it's fine. It's only when you come to want to do something under your eye that it doesn't feel right. So I haven't actually done that. I've literally just got eyeshadow and eyebrows. I have done my eyebrows, and actually I'm trying a new eyelid primer which one of my lovely subscribers recommended, and it's by Milani. It arrived yesterday from Amazon, so that's exciting. And actually I have to say, when I put it on my lids, it did look pretty good. It did seem to smooth them out quite well, so I was pleased about that. So oh, there we are. I think that's enough primer. Feels lovely and velvety, this primer. I really recommend it if you're after an affordable primer. It's really excellent, and it's so much better than the one in the jar, which I remember trying a couple of years ago, which was kind of stiff. This one is absolutely the business in my view, and gives the Huda Beauty one a run for its money. So let's start by applying the Laura Geller on this side. And what I'm going to do, because there's no distinction on the Bare Minerals description about how to use the kabuki brush, we're just going to use the full kabuki brush on both sides. So here is one kabuki brush. I've actually got two. This is one from Charlotte Tilbury, which I was given free when I had an online makeup consultation during lockdown. So we're going to put that into the product, just tap it off a bit, and we're just going to swirl this on. So we're going for medium coverage here. I'm not going to put anything under my eyes right now because I haven't got concealer on, so I'm just going to go here and try and be as even-handed as we can. Right, let me just check that. Okay, we've got the Laura Geller on. Let's get the Bare Minerals. I'm going to use the Sephora Kabuki brush, which I absolutely love. Now, what it says to do with this is we need to swirl a small amount in the cap until it disappears into the brush. Okay, I've just checked to see how to open this. There's a little plastic thingy here, a little plastic kind of cap, and I don't know whether you're supposed to break that away. I suppose you must be. You've got little holes here that you can then put into here, I assume, and then you're going to swirl the brush into it. It actually says swill, which is a strange word. Swill small amounts into brush. Sounds like a pig. This is supposed to activate the minerals and transform the powder into cream. So let's see what happens. I don't know whether I've got enough on the brush, but we'll see. Right, buff onto skin in circular motions. Okay. Is anything coming out? Is anything visible? Yeah, I see it. I don't know whether I've got enough. That's the only thing. It's difficult to tell. I might just do a little bit more. Actually, there is more in there, so that's fine. Feels like I'm in a car wash with one of those huge car cleaning brushes. Gosh, I haven't done that for years actually. Okay, so there we are. We've got the Bare Minerals on this side, the Laura Geller on that side. Let's apply some concealer and some powder under our eyes. And I'll use the Bare Minerals and the Laura Geller on top of my concealer, and then we'll have a final check. And then I will venture out into the daylight, and I have to say it's an absolutely horrible day out there. It snowed last night and now we've just got slush because we're in London. That's what happens. It looks absolutely beautiful for a few hours and then it all turns to slush. And it looks really grot. But anyway, I will gingerly step out into the garden in a few moments and we'll have a check to see how it's looking in natural daylight. Right, let me apply concealer. Now I thought I'd do this on camera only because I wanted to have a chat about concealers. Now I know we've had a lot of chat about concealers in the comments. And I am planning a mammoth concealer comparison. But it's such a tricky business, isn't it? Finding the right concealer, finding one that doesn't crease too much, that stays put, that doesn't look cakey. It's just such a difficult thing. I think it's the bane of all our lives, really, isn't it? Those of us who are into makeup. So I am really going to do a huge deep dive. I cannot tell you, I've got all price points as well. I've got affordables and ridiculously expensive ones as well. So that's what we're going to try and do. So at the moment, this one is the e.l.f. I bought this one before and I think I lost it. So I bought it again. It's the hydrating camo concealer, I think it's called, or the camo concealer that's not the original. And I did really like it. I know some people don't like it. They find it too heavy, but I think I'm learning at the moment, although I don't want to prejudice the outcome of the concealer test I'm going to be doing. But at the moment, I tend to gravitate more to fuller coverage concealers or medium coverage rather than the lighter, more serum-y ones. And I know there are so many ways of applying concealer. I've read all your comments and suggestions, and at the moment, this is the way I'm quite enjoying applying it, but it's still quite hit and miss. It doesn't always work, but it seems to be okay depending on the concealer I'm using. I'm just going to zoom you in just to show you what that's looking like. See, I think at the moment, just having applied it with the brush and my fingers, it's looking pretty good. And I was going to get a sponge and just finish it off, but I don't think I will because I think it's looking okay at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see now when we apply the powders on top how it looks. But I wouldn't want to leave it at that. I'd want to cover it with a powder. So that's my preferred method of applying concealer, is to put the concealer on and then add a little powder on the top. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to use the Angie Hot and Flashy concealer brush, which I actually find is pretty good for applying powder under your eyes rather than using it for concealer. I think it's a bit too big for me, so I prefer to use it for powdering my concealer. So that's what we're going to do. So we're using the Bare Minerals powder on top. I'm not sure if that's making any difference or not. Have I got enough there? Let me just get a little bit more. Maybe I haven't got enough. Okay, let's try that now. Always pursing my lips when I do my eyes. Yeah, I think that's worked. Right, let's apply the Laura Geller powder under this eye. Let's take a little bit, tap it off. Not that there's much to tap off because it's more of a cream than a powder. That's the difference really between the two. This is very definitely a creamy formula, whereas this is very definitely a powder formula. Okay, just going to pat it gently. This looks like it's caked up a little bit. Let me zoom you in. Now I don't know whether it had done that before I applied the powder or not. Can you see that? You'd have to have your reading specs on to actually see, but it doesn't look quite as smooth as this one. But let me know in the comments if you can see a difference. But otherwise, I think both sides are looking pretty good, and generally the concealer is looking okay. So I'll just pop a little lippy and blusher on, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about the rest of the day. Right, makeup's all finished. I'm going to pop outside now, and let's see how they look in natural daylight. Then I'll come back in 4 hours, and then I'll come back at the end of the day. We'll do a roundup and see what our final thoughts are. Don't go away. So here we are in natural light. It's pelting down with rain. The snow is melting. But how's it looking? I can't really tell at this point. I'll have to watch the footage back, but from what I can see, it's looking quite good. Let's have a quick look at the forehead. Oh, I'm getting soaked here. Not the best day for filming outside. Anyway, I might go inside as well and see if we can get some natural light through a window, just so you can see. What do you think? Well, here we are at the 4-hour check-in, and it's very interesting to observe what's been going on. I haven't touched anything at all, so my makeup is exactly as it was 4 hours ago. And using my magnifying mirror, which is the only way I can really tell what's going on, and I'm going to zoom you in so that you can see as well. So I would say what's going on here is there is this sort of powdery look to my skin here. It's kind of broken up a little bit, but it was like that earlier as well. It hasn't really changed all that much. And here the same, you can see it's settled into those lines. And this is the Bare Minerals side, by the way. But I'll tell you what is good, the under eye is looking very good indeed. I mean, obviously there's creasing, but there's always creasing, so I think that's done well. The cheeks are fine, the jawline is fine, and interestingly, there's no settling at all around my nose. So that's good. Forehead, really, not much to speak of. My forehead is usually fine. And actually, just quickly to mention, although it is really cold today, there hasn't been any oily eyelid syndrome at all. So I think that Milani eyelid primer maybe have done the bizzo. Anyway, let's look at the other side. So this is the Laura Geller side. So here, see, I think what's interesting here is, yes, there is some powderiness, but it's not as bad as the other side. But of course, this could be just to do with the texture of my skin. Obviously, one cheek is not going to be identical to the other. So I think that's fine. Again, the under eye is very good. Nothing to report there. There's a tiny bit of settling around the nose, but really not much to speak of. And I think there's very little in it, personally. That's how I feel anyway, looking at it 4 hours in. Now, I haven't put any highlighter on, and I think it's probably correct to say that the Laura Geller is demi-matte, which is what it said on the QVC website. But actually the Bare Minerals, I would say, is exactly the same. I think we've got a little bit of glow going on here, but like I say, I haven't got highlighter on, so where that glow is coming from, I couldn't tell you. Maybe it's the primer, I don't know. But it's nice, it's pleasant. Of course, I've got blusher on as well, actually, that's true, but I think it's a fairly matte-ish, is that a word? Matte blusher. So I'm very impressed anyway. I think both of them are looking fine. Of course, when I watch the footage back, I may feel differently, but I don't think I will. But anyway, we're going to come back again in another 4 hours. So we'll do an 8-hour check-in and we'll see how things have fared then. I'll see you in 4 hours. Don't go away. So we're back and it's just coming up to 6 o'clock and we've done a 10-hour wear test with the Laura Geller Balance and Brighten Powder Foundation and the Bare Minerals Original Powder Foundation. Now, what do we think? I have just had a look in the mirror, my magnifying mirror, and I am really impressed. And let me tell you for why. So I haven't touched anything since we last spoke at 2 o'clock. And I don't think anything has changed at all since we checked in. And very little has really changed since we applied it. Let's look at the Bare Minerals side first. I think we can say the under eye is looking really good. I mean, I don't think I've seen my under eye looking that good for some time, actually. Now, it could be, of course, because I've applied the concealer properly and well, but the powder on top has certainly worked. And looking at my nose, I don't think very much has changed around here. Oh, I've just seen a little hair there. There's always a little hair somewhere on my skin. I don't know why. They seem to like my skin. So yes, so sorry, we're digressing there slightly. So my nose is looking fine. This settling here is exactly the same as it was a few hours ago. This is still a bit powdery. Maybe it's looking a little bit more powdery. I don't know. Can you tell? But I think it's pretty good. Let's look at the other side. So here we are with Laura. And again, the under eye's fine. Sorry, there's a slight bit of stuff there. But the under eye is looking fine, hasn't really changed. The nose hasn't really changed. There's a little bit of settling, but that was there before. I think slightly less powdery on this side, like I said earlier. Yes, they're settling into lines, but you can only see it if I do this. And here we've got slightly less settling than on the other side. Maybe some of the foundation's rubbed off a bit on the chin. Let's see the forehead. That's fine. Now, let me just show you these eyelids. What do we think? Compared to my usual oily lids, I think that Milani has done rather well. So that's a bit of a win, and that was a lovely subscriber of mine who recommended it. So thank you so much. I think you might be onto a winner here. Thank you. So what's the verdict? Well, I think that the Laura Geller slightly edges it. There isn't a lot in it, but I think the Laura Geller hasn't created such a powdery surface on this side of my skin as the Bare Minerals has, although it could be the texture is different on both sides. So I could and will, of course, having just bought it and paid 37 quid or whatever it was for it, will be trying it all over my complexion as well and see how we get on and see if it makes it into one of my faves or fails later this year. So I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad I've tested it. Do let me know in the comments what you think. Did you see any difference on either side? I think the shades, actually, we haven't really talked about the shades. I have never had a problem with the Laura Geller shading, although I did buy and test the Balance and Glow, and I got a medium, which was a bit too dark, but I think that would be okay in the summer, just for the summer months. But I think for me, this shade is fine. It has to be said, I think my skin being neutral, leaning a little bit olivey, doesn't seem to have trouble finding shade. For example, with the Westman Atelier concealer, a lot of people say that it's too yellow for them, it's too warm, but it seems to be fine for me. I'm in the shade L4. So that just gives you an example of how my skin seems to cope with most shades, even if they're leaning a little bit too warm or a little bit too cool. But I think the Bare Minerals also, the colour, the shade that I chose, which of course I've now forgotten, but it's all linked in the description box below, seems to be fine. Oh, of course, it's this, how could I forget? It's the one that I couldn't find in the States. Yes, 09. So I think the shades have both worked well and the application was fine. Yes, the Bare Minerals is a little bit more fiddly because you've got to shake out a little bit, a bit like a flour shaker. You've got to shake out a little bit into the lid and then you get your brush and swirl it around and then apply it. So I would say for ease of application, the Laura Geller wins. So on balance, because also the Laura Geller is a little bit cheaper, it probably wins on all counts. But I know some people don't get on with it. So if you don't get on with it, but you would like a powder foundation, then maybe the Bare Minerals is the one to go for. So let me know in the comments what you think. So that's it. Before you go, please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to hear more from me, I do have a monthly newsletter. Now in that, what I try to do is bring you my faves and fails every month before I put them out on YouTube, so you get first dibs. And if you want to subscribe to that, the link is in the description box below. And thank you so much for watching. It means the absolute world to me. It really does. And thank you so much for helping me start 2025 with a bang. Thanks again so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on my next video. Bye!